And Sean Hannity here with a highlight from my radio show today, right here on iHeartRadio.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, thanks, Scott Shannon. Glad you're with us, Sean Hannity Show. We've had Dr. Zuhdi Jasser on the program before. He just returned from a 10-day trip to Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and he had high-level governmental meetings with ministers and also opposing meetings with grassroots reform activists that are on the ground. And he was there in the capacity of a commissioner on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Now, he can't speak to the official commission conclusions, but anyway, apparently he has some thoughts on what's going on there. The Muslim Brotherhood, apparently he met with some of them, as I understand it. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser is back. He's the author of The Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. How are you, sir?
Great, Sean. It's great to be with you, and I'm so blessed to have parents that came to the U.S. That was my first trip to the Middle East after having been raised and born in the U.S. and served in the Navy, and I can tell you it is really heading south, and our worst fears, as you've always been saying for quite a while, are being seen.
You know, I keep saying that we're going to look back in history. I know Obama doesn't see it. I certainly do, but I think we're going to view this time in history as the rise of the radical Islamists. Am I wrong?
You are absolutely right. And to what communism and the Soviets were in the Cold War, Islamism and political Islam is in the 21st century. And we see the Arab awakening now creating a vacuum that's being filled by the Islamists. And our government, whether it's our State Department in Saudi Arabia or our work in Egypt, has been all too ready not only to withdraw American soft power, but to basically help push along the Muslim Brotherhood. And, you know, when we met with activists on the ground in Egypt, some of the liberals, they're starting to promote these theories that we are helping the Brotherhood. And, you know, I couldn't help but sort of think that they're not that far from being off. We haven't even...
Wait a minute. We are helping them. We're giving them $1.5 billion. We're giving them F-16s. We're giving them tanks. And this guy, Mohammed Morsi, is a 9/11 truther, former head of a terrorist organization, and refers to the Israelis as descendants of pigs and apes. So, I mean, yes, we are helping the Muslim Brotherhood. That's just a fact.
It is a fact, and they view it as a conspiracy theory when, in fact, it's a fact that's open. We're helping them receive IMF funds, and the radical verbiage coming from Morsi, I'll tell you, having looked at some of his deputies in the eyes, the anti-Semitism and the anti-Westernism is in their DNA. It is part of the Islamists. They're not only working as the Brotherhood, but we met with one of their main deputies who was from the Salafist Al-Nur party and basically they're co-opting all of those that are part of the Islamist movement into trying to consolidate power, and they're unabashedly saying that they can restrict free speech. While we were there, they had just finished trying Americans in absentia and giving them a death penalty, and they're pretty unapologetically anti-Semitic and talk about the Jewish people in a collective way that can only be interpreted as being hateful.
So they're doing this right in front of you as you go and you meet with these leaders. How connected are they to Morsi?
It's his deputy assistant, one of his main assistants. That's his advisor.
What did he say that was anti-Semitic?
Well, he basically talked about how American policy is driven by Jewish interests and talking about it in a collective way. Talked about trying to explain the Quranic passage, which I, as a Muslim, wanted to throw up. But he was explaining it that the apes and pigs, it really wasn't meant as that. You have to put it in context. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And this gentleman was the former head of the Salafist party that now supposedly had been working as the more fundamentalist arm of the Islamists, but they seem to be working pretty hand in glove with the Brotherhood. And, I'll tell you, they're not that interested. When we were there, it was only 2 days after Morsi had done the photo op with Ahmadinejad. And even while Al-Azhar University, the Islamist Center of Academics, was saying the Shiites were deviants, etc., they are moving much closer into the Iranian orbit. They've opened travel for their citizens with no visas. They're getting cut-rate oil from Iran. So I can tell you, not only is our money wasted and propping up the Brotherhood, it doesn't matter what we do. They're moving closer to Iran and away from the West.
When that happened, it was the first time in 30 years that they had such a meeting, and I called it a geopolitical earthquake. And you're telling me this is all my instincts and fears you're confirming were correct. Look, this is interesting to me because historically it was always Sunni versus Shia, and you're saying that their hatred for Israel and the West is uniting Sunni and Shia. Am I right?
Absolutely. And the key, Sean, they are on the verge of economic collapse. Their productivity is dwindling. Their economy, as a result of it struggling, they're reaching wherever they can. So when they're desperate, they'll reach where they can. And that's why this is the time to stop the funding, to stop the IMF loan and other things that could let them survive, because the liberals on the ground that we met with that are struggling to get their voices, they need support from the West. And if the Muslim Brotherhood government fails, they will step up and unify and come together to provide a revolution 3.0, if you will, that will then bring more friendly secularists and those that believe in real freedom. And the Christians, I can tell you, who met with some of the Coptic minorities, they're deathly afraid of what's the future in Egypt as they see their freedoms being stripped away more and more.
Look, if they don't get out now, then it could be a modern-day Holocaust. In my view, they are already being oppressed in major ways. Let me just ask this question, because this is very key to all that's going on there. So basically, the United States of America is propping up a radical Islamic regime that is now also simultaneously forming an alliance with Iran and drawing closer ties with Ahmadinejad in a shared hatred for the United States, Israel, and the West. And we're giving them F-16 so they can oppress the very people that would bring about change and democracy, real democracy in Egypt?
Yes, sir. And the paradigm, Sean, is that they say, well, we don't have any other choice. If we don't support them, the whole place will collapse and they will even become more radicalized. And I can tell you that we need, this is why visionaries like Ronald Reagan, when he had the strength and temerity to say that the Soviets were an evil empire, even though short-term it created more conflict, long-term it was the death knell for Soviet communism. And
it's not going to happen under this president. And
exactly.
Do you have any doubt, having met with them, that if in fact they had the weaponry and an alliance with Iran and Iran had nuclear weapons, do you doubt that they would use those weapons against Israel?
I don't. I mean, you see it in their eyes that when they talk about Israel, they say what they have to publicly, but privately there is no. They continue to try to twist and squirm that, well, we're not anti-Jewish, it's just anti-Israel, and you have to make a distinction, when in fact such a distinction is absurd. Israel is a Jewish state that's been struggling for its survival, surrounded by enemies, and to make such a distinction and then somehow apologize for pure hate speech that is not only coming from the president, but is rampant in their media. Even at the time of Mubarak, he really wasn't that much of an ally. He was putting on the protocols of the Elders of Zion every Ramadan, and they're still putting on that kind of hate speech against Jews.
So if they have their way, their hatred runs so deep that they would feel justified in a modern-day Holocaust.
Well, I would hope that would never come to fruition.
Then the reason of course we hope it doesn't come to fruition, but we've got to look at what the truth is and the reality is. And the truth to me seems to be that this bizarre, fanatical embracing of radical Islam, coupled with this antipathy and hatred towards Israel, and you add to that mix weaponry that could be destructive to the extent that it can be. I mean, we've got a cocktail here that could end in a Holocaust. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, because the Brotherhood and its ideology of political Islam is not only domestically supremacist, they seek global domination, and it's not a coincidence that this neo-caliphate of the OIC met in Cairo just when we were there. And at the end of the day, it is about unifying Islamic governments across the region, and the biggest blockage or obstacle to that is the State of Israel and Western democracies. And by the way, this is not a majority of Muslims. The majority of Muslims and Christians and others in Egypt don't want this government, but they've not had the tools, the resources, or the ability to build civil society, and America has abandoned them. And I can tell you, we met with women's groups that just feel completely abandoned in the environment there, because we continue to have leadership in Washington that is just talking to the Islamists. And by the way, we're appointing people like Brennan and Hagel who are articulating the Islamist talking points. So they say, what is going on in Washington? You guys are using the same talking points as our enemies, and we can't get any traction. All the meanwhile, you have Al Jazeera and other media pushing pushing talking points and ideas that are suffocating the minorities. And yes, I fear for what the ideas of a future Holocaust may happen.
Let me ask you about your meetings in Saudi Arabia. Now, they've got very strict laws there. Women can't drive. Women can't be seen in public. You've literally have the morality police. If women are out seen in public with men that they're not related to, there is severe penalties. I've always found the Saudis to be duplicitous. They play both sides to the middle. Am I wrong?
I'll tell you, Saudi Arabia is a major problem. The ambassador there is a political appointee, a donor to Obama, came out of Raytheon. They have no interest in shaking the trees there, and it saddens me also as we met with minorities from the Shia community in Saudi Arabia that are oppressed, women's groups that can't get any traction, and again, they see America as simply facilitating the perpetuation of an authoritarian regime that thinks, and I'll tell you, as a Muslim, as I met with some of these ministers, they think they have the God-given right to control the global situation with Muslims around the world. And when I ask them about why they're exporting their ideas into the West and across the world into Pakistan and elsewhere, radicalizing Muslims by the millions, they claimed ignorance. And said that it really wasn't their ideas, it's the conservatives. So they split their society and say they have no control over the Wahhabi conservative majority in their country, all the while they continue to play us for fools in our policy. And we need to shift our policy to where we're no longer energy dependent on them, and they can fear us. And right now it's just appeasement.
I read a study the other day that shows that America has more oil, more natural resources, more fossil fuel than Saudi Arabia and all these Middle Eastern countries combined. I mean, they got to think we're pretty stupid by remaining dependent on foreign oil, don't they?
Absolutely. And you know, this is their entire paradigm, is they don't think we're ever going to stand up for the people in their societies or for actual values, but simply look at our pocketbook. And that's why part of finally divorcing from the Saudi dependence will be energy reform, and also telling the Saudis to the fact that we will stand for ideas and not continue to be pushed around. And unfortunately, when you have an ambassador there that really looks at minimizing American influence and does not stand up for the Shia minorities or the Christians, for example, that have to pray in private because they can't build a church, they can't pray publicly, individuals that are arrested because they speak critically of Islam or the Prophet Muhammad. And, Sean, you know, you cannot overestimate the importance of Saudi Arabia. It might be one tribe running a country there, but at the end of the day, to the tune of $90 billion, they've been exporting these ideas of radicalism that has fed the Brotherhood and fed all these Islamist groups around the world. They have a pivotal nature to what's going on globally with this Islamist movement, and until we take them on and we have somebody in the White House that'll do it, they're going to continue to be part of the main cancer cell in the region.
But this president's basically just disengaged. I mean, with America absent in terms of leading and pushing for and demanding democracy, and all we're doing is handing over weapons and checks to radicals, the president basically is assisting the rise of these radical elements.
He absolutely is, and that's I think that last point is so important, because if he was just disengaged and tried to be some type of objective arbiter, I'd say fine, but you know, he is assisting them. He is taking on the Islamist talking points. He is ignoring the majority of women and minorities in those countries that now look to us, and you wonder why America is, when you look at polls, is so despised in the region. It's not only because of our lack of media infiltration there, it's because they see us as empowering their dictators, their autocrats. And the Arab awakening has not been about democracy as the Obama talking points have been, and so many of our leaders have said from the Obama administration. It's really about the ascension of Islamism. And until we take it on to say that, you know what, these are going to be a global enemy to the West and liberalism and democracy, we are going to see our interests continue to wither. And we have to change the paradigm in the way we approach Saudi, Egypt, and all of these countries.
All right, Zuhdi Jasser, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. To say we'll pay attention to it as the rest of the world ignores the truth that is unfolding before our eyes. Hopefully at some point, sooner than later, before it's too late, people awaken to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
All right, toll free. It's 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. Quick break. Final half hour coming up. We'll get to your phone calls straight ahead.
For more of the Sean Hannity Show, go to Hannity.com.